So I've been reacting to different parts of Polish history, really enjoying everything I've learned so far. As I mentioned before, Poland has such a very interesting and unique history. And one of the recommendations that someone gave me to check out is this one. It's called Winged Hussars, the deadliest cavalry force in the history of mankind. Now that's a big title. Unfortunately, I've never heard of the Winged Hussars before, but that's the good thing about this channel is I can learn about things I never knew, and I'm really excited to learn about it. So tell me if you know about this, the Winged Hussars, the deadliest cavalry force in the history of mankind. And yeah, let's watch.
Cavalry throughout the history has been one of the most important factors when it came to winning battles. There have been a lot of famous cavalry units that have been romanticized in the ancient times, such as Persian cataphracts or companion cavalry during the reign of Alexander the Great. Both are noteworthy and have been important building stones of Persian and Macedon empires. However, not a single cavalry unit had as much of an impact on a country's dominance over their neighbors for centuries as the famed Winged Hussars. Winged Hussars were a heavy cavalry formation active in Poland and in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from the 1503 to 1702.
Yeah, so that's what I learned a little bit about that, the Polish-Lithuanian relationship during this time. Only briefly from the map that I reacted to, seeing the difference in Polish geography over the last 1,000 years. Some people told me more about that connection in the comments, so thank you very much for that. And yeah, interesting start. Tell me what you know about the Winged Hussars. Obviously a very powerful fighting force. You see how much combat has changed since then, but to know that during history Poland had this power in their arsenal, I think that's a fantastic thing. Tell me how you learned about this in the first place.
They were a dominant fear-mongering hurricane of horses and steel, which made the Polish Hussars to be respected and held in a high regard even during the Napoleonic era, long after their disbandment. Their epithet is derived from a large rear wings, which were intended to demoralize the enemy during the charge and also just face it, because they looked unique and freaking cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Contrary to the popular belief, Hussars originated in the mercenary units of exiled warriors from the Balkan region of Europe. Mercenary lancers of Serbian origin, known as the Raskians, were frequently hired to counter the Ottoman Sipahi and Delhi cavalry. In the 15th century, the Hussars based on those of Matthias Corvinus were adopted by some European armies to provide light and expendable cavalry units. The true Winged Hussar arrived with the reforms of the King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania Stephen Bathory in the 1570s, and was later led by King John III Sobieski. Most Hussars were recruited from the wealthier Polish nobility known as Szlachta. Each Hussar, tovarищ, or comrade in English, raised his own pochet or retinue. Several retinues were combined to form a Hussar banner or company. Over the course of the 16th century, Hussars became heavier in character. They abandoned wooden shields and adopted metal-plated body armor. Hussars had to provide the arms and the armor for themselves and their retainers, except for the lance, which was provided by the king. The lance was the main offensive weapon of the Hussar and also the key reason for their successes on the battlefield. One of the reasons that the European armies were turning to firearms and away from the cavalry charges was the appearance of pikemen or infantry equipped with two-handed pikes. That infantry made the charges of lance-bearing knights largely obsolete, and knight's one-handed lance couldn't be as heavy as the pike and therefore had to be shorter. Consequently, the knights couldn't reach beyond the pikes, so charging was out of the question. But the winged horsemen found a way to get around this, a quite crafty one. They devised a hollow lance, something revolutionary at the time. Not only it was lighter than the traditional one, but it also broke less easily. That's right, according to the laws of physics, a hollow lance is more robust than a full one. Also, thanks to the lower weight, the length could be extended. Suddenly, the Hussars' lance could be over 6 meters long, longer than a pikeman's pike, which averaged around 5 meters in length.
Well, isn't that very interesting? Like, you see today, the militaries of the world invest so much in research and development to have the best weapons, but also to have counter-offensive weapons and things like that as well. You see, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, coming up with these solutions that were very innovative and very interesting. How could they come up against this defensive line? They came up with this hollow lance. Very interesting, and not only does it show like about the winged Hussars being such a great fighting force, shows they were very innovative and forward thinking as well. And yeah, going back to just how they look and things, so unique. I've never seen them before. To see that they actually had those large wings and that image of them in the market, it must have been like seeing superheroes when you actually see them in these sort of environments. It's very, very interesting, really cool to be learning about this.
There were reports of Hussars impaling up to 6 Russians or Turks with a single charge. Moreover, the shabla, or saber in English, was carried on the left side, and several types of the sabers were known to winged Hussars, including the renowned Shabla Husarska. Some Hussars used battle axes and even war hammers. Later, they proved their adaptability when they embraced pistols. They protected themselves with an armor made of steel which was light, weighing around 15 kilograms. For riding, they used light Turkish saddles. The lightness of their attire allowed the Hussar horses to gallop at full speed for a long time. The Hussars used a special breed of horses. They were a cross between Polish and Tartar horses. The horses were famous for their endurance, speed, and maneuverability. The purpose of the shock cavalry was to inflict as much physical damage as possible with a single charge. But great military minds of the past realized that the emotional factor is as important as the physical one. That's why winged Hussars started polishing their armor so it became more visible and bright.
Wow, see, like things like this, when you think of wars in the past like this, you would always, I think most people would think the people who are the strongest, the biggest, most well organized. But when you see all the little details that they think of, you can see why they were the deadliest cavalry force, because they left no stone unturned. They're looking at every single detail which can make them better. If you use like a sporting analogy, like in football, they always talk about having like the competitive advantage, looking at all these fine margins, these fine details to be the best. They're looking at every single little thing to allow them to become the best.
It is also the reason why they wore leopard or bear skins on their shoulders, and most importantly, why they attached eagle wings to themselves, hence getting the name the Winged Hussars. In an era where it was unlikely that you would ever see a neighboring city, what were you supposed to make of the rapidly approaching heavily armored legion of vengeful, glittering angels?
Yeah, that's
the
true.
only problem was that the only wealthy nobles could have afforded the Hussar equipment and a horse. For example, the Hussar horse was worth more than an entire village. Therefore, winged Hussars were a very important but also precious unit and hardly expandable. This high entry level meant that there were never more than 10,000 of them at any one time, usually only a few thousand.
10,000 is still
Besides the
quite a
famous
lot.
Battle of Vienna in 1683, the winged Hussars won most of the battles they fought. In 1610, at the Battle of Klushino, 5,000 winged Hussars defeated the Russian army of 35,000 soldiers, an overwhelming odds of being outnumbered 5-1.
Whoa.
Later, they marched into Moscow, captured it and held on to it for 2 years. A feast that even the greatest military minds of history, such as Napoleon Bonaparte, and warlike superpowers such as German Empire in World War I and Third Reich in World War II were unable
Yeah,
to
they
recreate.
couldn't manage.
In
That's true.
1621, at the Battle of Chochim, 45,000 Poles repelled the invasion of 170,000 Ottoman Turks. The Poles entrenched themselves and the Ottomans laid the siege. However, the winged Hussars' counterattacks were devastating to the Ottoman army. On one occasion, 600 winged Hussars charged against 10,000 Ottomans. They broke their lines and drove the Ottoman janissaries back to their camp. Perhaps the most famous was the Battle of Vienna in 1683. The Ottoman Empire was just days away from conquering Vienna and putting the Christianity in the Europe in danger, possibly establishing a new hegemony over the Central and Christian Europe. However, the king of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, John III Sobieski, arrived just in time to save the day. He led 18,000 horsemen to charge down the hills, which became the largest cavalry charge in history. The victory was so decisive that it eventually led to the decline of Ottoman Empire and created a power vacuum in the region, which was later used by the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Whoa. I mean, this is something that everybody should know about. Everybody from Europe especially. Such a momentous occasion. Christianity in Europe could have been wiped out. The whole complexion of Europe could have been so different if it wasn't for the winged Hussars. And that's on the defensive side of things. Actually putting that blow into the Ottoman Empire and starting it crumbling. Bringing down an empire, the winged Hussars, that's fantastic. Tell me how they're remembered in Poland. These clips as well, are these from a movie or something that was made about the winged Hussars? Maybe I'll have to check that out. But tell me if you're from Poland, how proud of you of the winged Hussars are you?
In 1694, at the Battle of Hodov, 400 winged Hussars stood up against the 40,000 Crimean Tatars and defeated them. The Poles nicknamed the battle the Polish Thermopylae. The end of the Hussars' glory came a few years after their greatest victory at the Battle of Vienna. In 1702, at the Battle of Kliszow, the Swedish army led by the famous Charles XII destroyed the winged Hussars. It was the signal of the downfall of the famed cavalry. After nearly 2 centuries of dominance, the adversaries of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth started adapting and learned how to counter this unstoppable force of steel and flesh. The Hussars' opponents began using so-called Frisian horses. These were spiked obstacles that stopped cavalry charges. The firearms improved rapidly and caused more damage to the horsemen. Their reputation had also suffered, as the quality of the soldiers seeking to join them visibly decreased, as well as the slumping Polish economy were the main reasons behind the end of the Hussars. From then on, the winged Hussars took only part in ceremonies, as they became too expensive to raise and obsolete in the new modern warfare, which led to the public giving them a mocking nickname, the funeral soldiers. The Polish parliament abolished them in 1776. Yet, after the partition of Poland, the tradition of skilled Hussars lived on, some of which kept a fear-mongering reputation while serving in Napoleon's armies. Today, the Hussars are but a memory that conjures the lost glory of Poland's early modern period. Some of their accessories have become prized elements of the museum collections. At Kornik Castle, there are 3 lances. At the Wawel Royal Castle, you can see a winged suit of armor,
cool.
while on display at Warsaw Polish Army Museum is an ornate Hussars horse stack for parades. The Polish Hussars are depicted on the commemorative 200 złotych gold coin, and the badge of the Polish Army's 1st Armored Division is inspired by the armor of the winged Hussars.
Whoa, that's so
Despite
cool.
their fall from grace, their unique innovative design and legendary fearsomeness means that their image has continued to last through all sorts of stories for the last 230 odd years since their dissolution. No doubt, the Hussars will continue to inspire many for years to come. The winged Hussars were the deadliest cavalry in the history of humankind. They won most of the battles they fought, even when outnumbered by the enemy. The sight of the winged hussars inflicted fear in the hearts of the opponents. They achieved a legendary reputation. The stories about their feats circulated across the Europe, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. Everyone knew and feared the angels of death.
Whoa, that was awesome, man. I feel like really privileged to learn about them. Such an amazing fighting force. Not just their ability, but just something simple like the way they look. It's so unique in the history of warfare. I've never seen soldiers look like that before. But yeah, looking or hearing about how outnumbered they were, such small pockets and small amounts of them taking on so many opposing armies and being successful, for the longevity of it as well, for a couple of centuries, such a long time that they had power and were this amazing fighting force. Thanks for watching.